I now give the floor to the President of Bolivia. Thank you.
I'll play the best part first.
President of the United States of America, my brother Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, fellow presidents, brothers and sisters of the Security Council. I would like to say to you frankly and openly here, in no way is the United States interested in upholding democracy. If such were the case, it would not have financed coup d'etat and supported dictators. It would not have threatened with military intervention democratically elected governments, as it has done with Venezuela. The United States could not care less about human rights nor justice. If this were the case, it would have signed the international conventions and treaties for the protection of human rights. It would not have threatened the investigation mechanisms of the International Criminal Court, nor would it promote the use of torture, nor would it have walked away from the Human Rights Council, and nor would it have separated migrant children from their families, nor put them in cages. The United States is not interested in multilateralism. If it were interested in multilateralism, it would not have withdrawn from the Paris Agreement or given the cold shoulder to the Global Compact on migration. It would not have launched unilateral attacks, nor have taken decisions such as illegally declaring Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel. This contempt for multilateralism is motivated by the thirst of the United States for geopolitical control and for the seizing of natural resources.
Here's another good part.
Brothers and sisters, we are convinced that it is crucial to have a discussion not just on the effects, but above all on the reasons of the assaults on international peace, security and justice that we are seeing. Let us take the example of Iran, a country which has been referred to this morning. In 1953, the United States financed, planned, and implemented a coup d'etat against a democratically elected government, which, in exercise of its legitimate sovereignty, nationalized its oil production, wresting it from the hands of an Anglo-US company. After that, for many decades, the United States supported an authoritarian government which allowed the profits from oil production to line the pockets of transnational companies. This situation endured until the revolution of 1979. And now that Iran has retaken control of its own resources, it is once again the victim of a US siege. Bolivia categorically condemns the unilateral actions imposed by the government of the United States of America against Iran. Likewise, we condemn the fact that the United States has withdrawn from the JCPOA, hiding behind pretexts to continue its policy of interference and meddling in the internal affairs of this brother country, Iran. Brothers and sisters of the Security Council, we wish to refer to the region of the Middle East, a region rich in natural resources, but thus ripe to be, as it is, affected by invasion, war, and unjustified aggression that continue to cause pain and suffering for the peoples of the Middle East. This region of the world has been the setting for the three most egregious acts of aggression committed during the 21st century. The first act of aggression to which I refer is the illegal invasion of Iraq, based on the lie that that country possessed weapons of mass destruction. This invasion led to more than 1 million deaths. The second act of aggression is the overthrow of the government of Libya, which led to tens of thousands of deaths, whilst pretending that it was for humanitarian reasons. As a consequence, it has triggered serious political instability and unleashed a humanitarian crisis across the north of Africa. The third act of aggression to which I refer is the civil war in Syria, which, over the last 8 years, has cost the lives of more than 500,000 people. This war is the direct result of the interference and of the financing of armed groups and terrorist organizations who have pitted themselves against the Syrian government. Brothers and sisters, over the last few months, the United States has once again demonstrated its contempt for international law, for multilateralism, and for the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Each time that the United States invades nations, launches missiles, or finances regime change, it does so behind a propaganda campaign which incessantly repeats the message that it is acting in the cause of justice, freedom, and democracy, in the cause of human rights or for humanitarian reasons. Brothers and sisters, in light of the aforementioned situations, I would like to hail those countries, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, China, and Russia, who have held firm in defense of the nuclear agreement signed with Iran. We praise also those countries who have not abandoned the Paris Agreement, those countries that defend the principles of sovereign equality of states, those countries that uphold the principle of non-interference in domestic affairs, those countries that respect international law and respect those commitments freely entered into, and who defend multilateralism. Our congratulations to those countries. The responsibility of our generation is to hand over a fairer and more secure world to the following generation. We will only achieve this dream if we work together to consolidate a multipolar world, a world with common rules that are respected by and defended from all the threats ranged against the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now give the floor to the President of Bolivia.
And here's the rest. It's good too.
President of the United States of America, my brother, Antonio Guterres, President of the United Nations, fellow presidents, brothers and sisters of the Security Council. The Presidency of the Security Council has convened the members of this body to a discussion on the non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction today. Bolivia hails from a region which has been duly declared nuclear weapon-free for more than half a century now. For this reason, I think I am in a position to recall Article number 1 of the Treaty Prohibiting the Use of Nuclear Weapons, which states that each state party commits to never and under no circumstances developing, testing, producing, manufacturing, acquiring in any other way, possessing or stockpiling nuclear weapons or other nuclear devices. I call upon all states around this table to sign up to ratify, and to immediately implement this provision, and indeed all the provisions of said treaty. This is the best way of avoiding the catastrophic possibility of the use of weapons of this nature. This is a moral imperative and a duty that we owe to future generations. Brothers and sisters of the world, the member states of the United Nations are obliged to comply with the core purposes and principles of the Charter of 1945. Above all, we are obliged to abide by the principle of resolving international disputes through the use of peaceful settlement mechanisms. None of these mechanisms presupposes the use of weapons of any kind, quite the contrary. This is a call for negotiation, diplomacy, dialogue, and legal settlement, and these are the principles that should guide the actions of countries whenever faced with a disagreement or dispute. Bolivia is convinced that only through using these peaceful means will we be able to build fairer societies and societies willing to shoulder their shared responsibilities. We have to be capable of putting behind us and leaving on the pages of history books the primitive use of weapons to attack other peoples. I would like to highlight as an example the contribution made by the International Court of Justice, the primary judicial body of the United Nations system, which has been able to effectively resolve disputes between states in various parts of the world and states faced with different situations and complaints.
You saw these parts at the start. Please subscribe and click the bell. Even subscribing and clicking the bell helps.